Hello guys, how are you? Is your car lacking in compression? On this Alfa 75, as you may know, this one it is lacking in compression. On this video, I'll try to explain you step by step how to know where the problem is without opening up the engine. Let's test the compression step by step to understand that. This video will do for all engines, all makes and models, gasoline and diesel engines. For gasoline engines, the compression that you may expect is about 10 bar, and for the diesel one is for about 20 bar. Now this engine, being a gasoline one, I should expect about 10 bar, but actually what I am reading here is about half of that. 6 bar on 1, 7, 7, 7. So if you remember when I did this engine, when I repaired this engine, it was not on camera, but I did a compression check and it was like this, about 5, 6 bar. So I gained 1 bar, 2 bar at most. Because I had my valve seats on the intake side, they were completely corroded. And if you remember, when I took out the bottom end of the engine, the oil pan, I had number 1 and number 3 con rods. They are bent because the bearings are worn out on different places. So I have the bottom one worn out on the left and the top one worn out on the right, meaning that the con rod is working crooked on the number 1 and number 3. So it was expected to the number 1 and 3 to be the worst of the bunch, but actually I have the 4 of them. They are really bad. So how can I test what really is the problem? Because if I have a new head, the problem must be on the block itself, on the cylinders, on the piston rings, on the piston themselves. So how can I test that? Imagine that your head is not new like mine, and you have to make sure what is the problem. There is a simple way to know, rapid way to know where the problem is, and another step that you can do to try to mitigate that problem. The thing that I like to do to test the engine, first we took a baseline reading of the compression of the engine with the engine dry. Of course with oil on the oil sump. But now I want to, if I have a feeling that the problem is, or if I have to confirm that the problem is on the piston rings may be worn out or maybe stuck to the piston itself, like I told you on the video about the multi-jet 1.3 liter engines, I can create a temporary seal around the pistons to imitate the piston rings. And we can do that with plain engine oil. You just put a little bit of engine oil on each of the holes, like this, to try to imitate the piston ring. Now for a few seconds, for a few minutes, we can do the compression check on each of the cylinders and see if we gain the correct or almost the correct compression. If we do, we know now that we have a problem on the piston rings, on the piston itself, or on the cylinder liner, or all three also. Okay, so let's check one at a time. If I put oil on the others right now, the oil would just shoot up and create a huge mess. So you do one at a time and check if we were successful. Well, that was self-explanatory, wasn't it? My engine is burned. Yeah, something on the piston rings. In Portuguese is segments. That's why I keep stalling at piston rings. Something on the pistons, because we know that the conrods are crooked. So we come back to the initial diagnosis when I opened up the oil pan, that I need new conrods, new piston rings, new liners, so a new bottom end, and maybe the crankshaft, I don't know. Okay, I already kind of knew this, but doing this test was really eye-opening because it's bad, it's really bad. So, but I have a tip for you, maybe in your case. In mine, I think it will not work, but I already did it in some cases of the Renault engines, the DCI engines. It works very well. The piston rings become stuck, and we can add a fluid, a very common fluid, on top of the pistons, like I did with the engine oil, and it will solve the problem. I'm hoping, in my case, just a little bit more, just 1 or 2 bars more, to 8, okay? Please, just 1 more or 2 bars. Okay. Do not forget 2 things. As you are doing the cranking to see the compression, make sure you are at full throttle so you have a lot of flow of air coming on to your engine. Another thing, you have to have a nice charged battery. I have some doubts on mine, and I am doing a lot of cranking because of the recording of the video. So I have a backup battery permanently charged and ready to supply me with good power to my new starter motor. So beware of that. Another thing that I did not tell you, if this test have failed, that is because we may have problems with the valves, crooked valves, bad timing, some valve that is broken, and the oil escapes immediately to the intake or the exhaust. So this test is very good to know if our bottom end is good or not. If you want to repeat and try to appreciate more of this, you can repeat as many times as you want the compression checks with the engine oil on top of the pistons. Beware that if you have the pistons with the hole on the middle, like on the multi-jet engines, you have to make sure that the oil goes around the piston and not just on the hole on the center of the piston. In this case, I have hemispherical pistons, so the oil just runs out directly to the segments. That is a very nice thing to have. So on your case, you may have to use more engine oil to do the testing. If you have a lot of engine oil, you may stall you may hydrolock the engine. So beware of that, and actually you may injure your meter gauge. So now the next step is to add brake fluid. Yeah, the brake fluid is very corrosive. As you may know, I already warned you about that lots of times on my channel. As you are doing brake jobs, you must be very careful about the spilling and whatnot. So if it is corrosive, it is really good for corroding stuff. So we will try to corrode away the varnish and the carbon buildups around the segments, around the piston rings. I will add a very nice generous amount of oil, because if I have 1 or 2 pistons that the fluid just runs out to the bottom of the engine, I will not have enough fluid to do the job. So I will add a nice generous amount and see hour by hour each one is disappearing the fastest. So in that way I try to rotate the engine so the pistons are all the way to the middle of the engine block, so I know visually which of the pistons are eating away the fluid. The ones that are the ones that have the biggest problem. So let's put a generous amount, and tomorrow, 24 hours later, we will see which ones still have oil, and the ones that have oil still are the ones that are good, and the ones that are not, the oil has disappeared. But as it is disappeared, it may free the piston rings, and in that way we can repeat the engine cranking to see the compression and see if we actually gain something. Beware, before doing this, go to the road to try to burn out all of this oil of this testing, and now with the engine clean you can add this oil. So yeah, this is heartbreaking for me. I did not expect much, but something, yes, and I have something more on the first cylinder. But I am sure there is oil residue or something not to be considered, not enough to consider a increase in compression. So yeah, time for a total engine rebuild. I don't know if I will do it ever, because I am facing a lot of difficult times in my life, so I don't want to worry with that. To assemble everything that I did over here, I already did videos. I'll leave them down below on the description so to see how to do it. Not very difficult, but nonetheless it is down below. Okay, bye.